made two simple little guides to check my waxes with. First is, this plywood is cut the actual size of the bronze. They're both the same size. So it should not go in the wax. The wax should be bigger than this. Secondly, I made a simple little guide for the height. This is the height of the bronze, so the wax should be taller. I should be hitting wax before I hit the tabletop. So I have one for this shape, and I have one for this shape. Just want to make sure my wax is big enough so that after it pours and I sand it, I should be right back to where I started.
These are the waxes fresh out the mold. I haven't really done anything to them. We need to measure them up and make sure that the wax is large enough.
So I'm glad I checked. This one, the big one, is big enough. The wood won't fit. The little one is not big enough. You see, it's loose. And if I pour bronze, it's going to get even looser. So I'm going to build that up. And the big one on the length, it is, let me put it over here, let me see it. Too much crap over. Okay, the big one on the length is tall enough on this side, but it could be a little taller on this side, so I'm going to add some wax. The little one, it's the same thing. I'm not sure what's going on. It's tall enough on this side, but I could add some more on this side. So I'm going to heat up some wax and see what I can do. Try to sculpt it. So I've added wax. Basically I used the red sprue wax, which is real limber. Put it around and then filled in the divot with my finger with some warm wax, and it looks like donkey dew right now, but I'm going to try to straighten it out. I have enough wax on here if I can make it pretty. So this pan is hot. It's just under boiling, and I'm using it kind of like an iron to flatten out that surface that I added on this one. Okay, so I don't know how that looks in the camera, but that's it. It's flat all the way.
So at this point, I have added enough wax to bring the wax to a larger than original size. This will allow for shrinkage and for some sanding and grinding. And now I'm using a sheetrock knife and the propane torch to heat the sheetrock knife. Just kind of sculpting it down, trying to make it look a little nicer, knocking off the high spots and filling in the low spots. Kind of freehand sculpting work. It's not my strong point, but I can get it a lot better. And the better condition the wax is, the less grinding and sanding I'll have to do in the bronze. But sometimes I almost think it's easier to shape bronze than wax. I have a hard time with wax.
Pretty respectable. So I got the size I need, and I got the diameter I need. I just need to add some material here so I'll be able to grind it back when the bronze is poured, and add a little bit of material in here so I'll be able to again grind the edge on there after the bronze is poured. And the same with this one. It's brought up to size. This one just needed to be a little longer. You can see the red where I added height. Just need to add a little material on the inside to make it easier for me after the bronze poured to smooth that curve out. So the two waxes are made. Pretty ugly, but I I have better luck grinding bronze than trying to make wax look pretty. So I just have enough wax. I can put the flat disc on it and shine it up. They're both ready to go dip. I'll go do my first dip. First of probably 5 or 6 or more. First dip. This is a product called Suspended Slurry. It's purchased from Ransom and Randolph, I believe is the name. Hang them up here and let them drip a little bit. It's hot in here right now. Summer's coming. The temperature for the ceramic shell drying doesn't matter as much as humidity, and I have a dehumidifier. But what will happen is if you let it get too hot in here, this wax will get soft and the hook will pull out and it'll fall on the floor and break into a million pieces. And I know that from experience. So what do they say? Experience. Good planning comes from experience, and experience comes from poor planning. I'm going to dip it in the fine sand. That's it. I'll dip the other one. We'll hang them. I'll turn on both fans. Turn on the air conditioner. If I was here all day, I could probably do 3 dips in a day, maybe 4. But I'm usually just here in the morning, so 1 dip a day. Yesterday I did wax burnout on these 4 molds. 2 pairs of logos, 1 pair is sold, and these closed chocks, and they're sold. So I'm kind of anxious to pour them today, but I got a dead forklift right in the middle of the floor. And the mass is hanging from the beam overhead. It's been trying to, this thing's been leaking oil terribly since the first week I had it, and I've just been dealing with it. I decided to go ahead and fix it, and then now it's in the way. But I got 1 cylinder out. I've never done this before, but I got it out. I got the end off. I need to get parts for it. So I think I'm going to get the other cylinder out. And then I think if I lean the mast back against the cabin and secure it with a come along, then I think I can be able to put it in gear and back it up and get it out the way. And then I can roll my furnace into position and my sand pit into position, and maybe end up getting a pour after all. Molds are heating up. Bronze is heating up. And I built this little platform. Platform in the sand pit to get the molds to a convenient height, so I don't have to fritz with them when they're hot. I can just bring pour yesterday seemed to go well. You can see the mold cracking. That's from the bronze shrinking as it cools. And the mold does not shrink at all. It's pretty dimensionally stable. So this is what normally happens. It didn't crack when I poured the hot metal in. It's not until it starts cooling off that these cracks start developing. It's kind of cool, actually.
The bond between the ceramic shell and the bronze chemically is not much. So on big flat surfaces, it comes off easy because it just doesn't stick. But it's pretty hard, and so mechanically, when it gets up in a corner, in a crack, or in a recess, it can be pretty tough to get off. It's you pretty much rely on the blasting cabinet to have to blast things out of the corners. The big pieces come off quick as long as there's no undercuts or crevices for them to bite into.
The first two hose pipes poured and the majority of the ceramic shell knocked off of them, and I'm going to now cut off the pour cup and start the finishing process. And I have the ring. The owner sent me the ring. This makes it easy. I just need to make this one fit this ring and the other one fit the other ring, wherever it is, and I'll label them so when they get to his boat, it should be a no-brainer as far as fitting the rings.
My tools of choice when I go to cut these things up, it's usually the grinder with the little thin cutoff wheel or the portaband. These sprues were fairly hefty, so I use the portaband, which cuts a little quicker, but the blades are kind of pricey and it's easy to jack them up and end up with a $15 blade in the garbage can. So I use both, but in this case we use the portaband.
That's one. With the cutoff wheel and the grinder, I've trimmed these, cleaned these up a little bit. This is cuts really rough, but it cuts quick, and the flap discs are really expensive, so I'll try to get rid of the bulk of the extra metal with the cutoff wheel. And now with the ring, I can go with the flap disc and start shaping it so it's going to fit the ring that's going to go with it on the boat. So that's the next thing. I'll get a flap disc with a coarse grit. The coarsest grit I have, I think, is 60. I could use a 36, but I don't have one. And I'll start shaping the outside. I found an old 36. It'll give me a little bit more before it's dead. I'll start out with that.
So the next few hours involved lots of sanding with the flap wheel on the grinder. I used a carbide bit on my little air grinder to clean some of the bumps off the inside. I used a flap disc on my little air grinder on the inside. I used little 2-inch pads all around. I've used just about every abrasive tool in my arsenal to just refine these and get them looking good, get them to fit the ring good, and get the inside smooth so it wouldn't hang up on a line, and pull fuzzies off a dock line.
I've grinded the outside until the ring almost fits, and this is really, really hot, so I think when it cools down it might fit. I don't want to grind anymore. And then so height wise, if I put my little deal on here, I'm long enough, so I'm the right outside dimension and I'm the right length. So now what I need to do is just make it pretty. I need to round these inside corners, sand the opposite face, bead blast it and get it clean. Make sure there's no snags where that'll hang up a rope, a line, whatever you want to call it. So this is doing good. Lots of grinding and sanding, buffing later. Got the rings to fit on both of them. They're a little bit different, so I'm gonna have to mark the rings. I'm gonna have to keep this ring with this pause pipe. But they're pretty and they're very heavy. Thick cross section. It actually makes it easier to pour. I'm gonna put them in the box, ship them to the owner, make sure everything fits and he likes them. And I think I'm gonna be pouring 6 more for him.